Do you often feel urges to do bad things? If so, stay tuned and I will teach you how to resist temptation today. What is going on, everyone? We are back for another episode of Prospering with Christ. I hope that you had a wonderful week last week, and I hope that this week will be just as amazing to you as well. So for today's episode, we are discussing how to resist temptation. I want to ask you a question. Have you ever looked at a Christian person and you feel like they don't practice what they preach? They talk a lot about God and living righteous and doing godly things. But when you look at their life, you don't see no type of godliness in it. You don't see no type of righteousness in it. When you look at their life, you kind of view them as a hypocrite, where it's like you're not doing the things that you preach to other people. The reason why that happens is because a lot of us do not have a clear understanding of temptation. We don't have a clear understanding of how we're going to be tempted and how to overcome temptation. And what we don't realize is that when we try to do right, when we try to grow our relationship with God, when we try to live a righteous life, the devil is going to tempt us the most. And the reason why is because he views us as a threat. You are not a threat to the devil when you are playing on his field. You are not a threat to the devil when you are living for the world, when you are operating in sin, when you are doing things to honor him. But as soon as you make the decision to change your life, as soon as you make the decision to do better and try to live righteous and try to live a life that honors God and try to live godly, you are now a threat to him. And he is going to continue to play off your weaknesses. He is going to continue to tempt you in the areas where he knows that you are weak. And the reason why so many Christian people are living lives that people view as hypocritical is because we have not learned how to overcome temptation. Every time the devil tempts us, we give into it. We don't realize that we are playing on his field. We struggle so much with temptation, and we don't understand how to overcome it, how to fight back. And so we just settle for it, where we say, okay, in the eyes of the public, I will live righteous, but behind closed doors, I will continue to settle with this sin. I will continue to settle with these things of the world. I will continue to settle with these things because I don't know how to overcome it. And as long as we continue to operate from that type of mentality, we will always stay stuck. We will never be fully righteous. We will never be fully godly. We have to get to a place where we learn how to fight back. We have to understand that the devil does not want us to succeed. The devil does not want us to grow. And every single time that we give into the temptation, we are making him happy. We are honoring him. He's doing everything to hold us back, and we're making it easy for him. We're making it easy because we don't even try to fight temptation. We're making it easy because we give in every single time. And it's time for us to make a decision where we say, you know what? I understand that this is something that I like. I understand that this is something that feels good to me. I understand that this is something that's hard for me to overcome, but I am going to turn the other way. I am not going to give into the temptation that the devil is throwing at me. It may be hard now, but one day it will be easy. Because we have to realize that the reason why the devil keeps throwing those temptations at us is because he understands that that's an easy target for us. He knows that if he throws this specific thing at you, you're going to take the bait. But the more that you refuse to give in, he realizes that he can no longer use it. So he will stop tempting you in those areas because he knows that it no longer works. But the reason why it's so hard now is because he knows that's an easy target for you. He knows that that's the place you're weak in. He knows that that's the place you're vulnerable in. And he will continue to throw it and throw it and throw it because he knows that you don't have the revelation and you don't have the knowledge to fight back. And it's time for you to make the decision today and fight back and overcome temptation. The first way to resist temptation is by understanding the ways that the devil is going to tempt you. And one of the main ways that the devil tempts us is through people. The devil likes to send people in our lives to influence us, to peer pressure us. And one thing that we have to understand, that every single person around us in our environment is an influence on us. You have to make the decision though, because some people can influence you in a good way and some people can influence you in a negative way. And the devil is going to send the people who's going to influence you in a negative way. They're going to peer pressure you and say, why are you trying to do this? Come do this. Come live unrighteous, come live unholy, come do wrong, come make mistakes, come do things that don't bring honor to God's name. They're going to do things to try to hold you back. They're going to try to pressure you to hold you back. And a lot of us give into this because we want to fit in. We want to be accepted. We want to feel normal. What happens when the devil tries to tempt you with every single person in your environment? Maybe God is calling you to higher, but he has not brought you to that higher place yet. So everyone in your environment is completely different than you. They're on a completely different road than you. They're doing things that don't honor God. You're the only one trying to progress forward. You're the only one trying to change and grow. You're the only one trying to do better in your life. But now you feel this pressure because you don't fit in. You feel different. You don't feel normal. And now you feel like I should move backwards. And I know that what these people are doing is wrong, but I want to do it too because I want to feel accepted. And God is saying you have to get to a place where you understand I called you for greater. There is a reason why you don't fit in. There is a reason why you are not being accepted by these people. There is a reason why you feel different than these people, because you are. You cannot allow these people to influence you when I called you to influence them. There is a reason why I set you, one person who is different, in their space, because you are going to be that one person who will influence them to come to me. You are going to be that one person who will influence them to live a righteous life. You are going to be that one person who shows them that it is possible for someone who came from their environment to make a change and have better in their life. Stop allowing negative people to influence you and understand that maybe God called you to influence them. Stop allowing negative people to peer pressure you to be like them when God called you into that space to show them the way to greatness. We talked in a previous episode about how one of the main ways that the devil plays with us is by changing our perspective. He likes to make us perceive things a specific way. And in your life, he's been trying to make you perceive things in a specific way. He's been trying to make you think that the reason why you are not like the people in your environment and the people in your space is because you are odd, you are weird, you are not normal, you are just different in a negative way. But if you would just change your perspective and you will realize why God put you there. If you would just change your perspective and you will realize how God called you to be a leader. God called you to be a Moses. God called you to be a David. God called you to be a Paul. God called you to be a leader. He sent you there for a specific reason. It's not because you are beneath them. It's because you are above them. You are the one who's supposed to be guiding them. You are the one who's supposed to be leading them. And if you could just change your perspective and see that, it will be so much easier for you to resist temptation to be like them. And I want you to understand that sometimes people who influence you are not just the people who are physically in your space. It's not just the people who live in your neighborhood and go to your schools and work at your jobs and live in your household. Sometimes it's the people that you are listening to through the things that you watch. Sometimes it's the people that you see on TV. Sometimes it's the people that you listen to when you listen to music and you listen to podcasts. Sometimes it's the people who you are getting influenced by, who you are getting wisdom from, but they're not physically in your space. TV shows, movies, podcasts, music, YouTube channels. All of these things play a part in influencing you. All of these things play a part in the decisions that you make. And you have to really monitor the things that you have been taking in. You have to really monitor the things that you've been feeding your spirit and ask yourself, is this a good influence or is this a negative influence? How do I feel after I watch that show? How do I feel after I listen to that podcast? How do I feel after I listen to that song? How do I feel? How is this influencing me? Sometimes you have to take a moment and self-reflect and ask yourself, is the things that I'm taking in good for me? Is the things that I'm taking in adding to my temptation? When I watch that show, do I have a temptation to operate in sexual sin? When I watch that show, do I have a temptation to steal? When I listen to that song, do I have a temptation to cheat? How is this influencing me? Sometimes it's not just about the people physically in your space. Yes, they have an influence on you too, but you have to monitor the things that you are taking in. You have to get to a place where you're saying, I am going to put a guard over my eyes, my ears, and my mouth. I am going to be very strategic about what I am feeding my spirit. I am going to protect myself and not put myself in a predicament to even allow the devil to tempt me. And this is something that we've been talking about on previous episodes, but I want to touch on it again because this is a very big way that the enemy tempts us, and that is through our feelings. The devil really likes to play on our feelings. I said this in previous episodes. When we start feeling things, that is when the devil is going to play with us the most. When you get into an argument with your spouse and you're angry and you don't really want to talk to them right now, that is when the devil is going to tempt you to cheat. When you've been on your faith journey and you've been being faithful and you've been doing everything that you're supposed to do and you're still not seeing results and you feel discouraged, that is going to be the moment where the devil tempts you to turn away from God. When you're going through things and you start feeling sad, you start feeling depressed, that is when the devil is going to start to tempt you, and he's going to start to tell you that you are worthless, that nobody loves you, that you should just end everything. The devil tempts us on our emotions. The devil likes to use our emotions as a way to open the door and get to us, to make us make a mistake, to make us go against God, to make us do something that we're going to later regret. And in order for us to resist the temptation, like I said in previous episodes, we have to get to a place where we stop acting on our emotions. Emotions are normal. It's okay to feel it. But when you feel it, get with God, vent to God, tell God how you feel, but do not make a move until you feel better. Do not make a move until you feel at peace again. Do not make a move from this place. Do not make a move from this emotion, because if you make a move from how you're currently feeling, you might jeopardize everything God had for you. You might jeopardize the entire plan that God had for you. You might set yourself back, where yes, you still get the blessing. Yes, you still get the breakthrough, but it's taking you longer because you set yourself back. Instead of allowing the devil to tempt you on your emotions, learn how to control your emotions so that he doesn't even have a chance to do so. And understand what's making you feel the way that you're feeling. Because a lot of our emotions are based off of our circumstance. Sometimes if we're going through a rough time, we feel discouraged, we feel sad, we feel bitter, we feel angry. Sometimes if life is good for us, we feel happy. Sometimes our circumstance plays a part on how we're feeling. And sometimes our circumstance is the very thing that the devil is going to use to tempt us. When you're sitting there and you're having money problems and the devil is telling you to do things that ain't godly. He's telling you to go out and sell drugs. He's telling you to go out and start an OnlyFans. This is where he starts to tempt you. He uses your circumstance to tempt you. You have to get control of your feelings. You have to understand what's making you feel this way. And instead of giving into that temptation, you have to get with God and you have to say, God, this is how I'm feeling. This is what I'm going through. I don't like going through this. I want to get with you so that we can come up with a plan so that you can give me instructions to get me out of this place. I want to ask you a question. How are you enjoying this episode so far? Is this episode teaching you about temptation and how to overcome it? If so, I want you to do me 3 favors. Favor number 1, I want you to leave a review and let me and other people know how you are enjoying the show. You can leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening to this episode. Leave an honest review and let me and others know how you are enjoying the show. Favor number 2. If you know anybody who has been struggling to overcome temptation, I want you to send this episode to them. Let this episode motivate and encourage them the same way that it is motivating and encouraging you. And favor number 3, if you are liking the wisdom and the insight that you are getting in this episode, make sure that you join our Facebook group. In our free Facebook group, I dive deeper into these topics and give you more tips, insight, value, and challenges to help you actually walk through this journey and overcome temptation. So the link to that will be in the description of the episode. Now let's get back to the show. You want to know something that I noticed? A lot of us feel bad for feeling temptation. We condemn ourselves when we feel tempted to do bad. We condemn ourselves for having those types of thoughts. We condemn ourselves for even considering doing those things. And we have to get to a place where we understand that temptation is normal. You are going to be tempted. The closer that you try to get to God, the more righteous that you try to live, the more that you try to grow and succeed and expand and just change and transform yourselves, the more that the devil is going to tempt you. Temptation is normal. The problem comes when you act on temptation. The problem comes when you give into temptation. It's not for having temptation. It's not for having the thought. It's when you give into the thought. And you have to stop condemning yourself for feeling tempted. Instead of condemning yourself for feeling it, reward yourself for not giving into it. Because it is going to be so much easier to resist temptation when you change your perspective. When you make yourself feel like you actually did something noble. See, the reason why it's so hard for you to not give into temptation is because you make yourself feel bad for even feeling it. You make yourself feel bad for even thinking it. And so because you are condemning yourself, because you are making yourself feel ashamed, because you are making yourself feel unworthy, like you don't even deserve to talk to God, you don't even deserve to pray, you don't even deserve to do the things that God told you to do, you don't even deserve to have the things that God wanted you to have, because you're making yourself feel that way, you give into the temptation as a way to cope. You feel like you deserve to be the type of person who lives that life. You deserve to be the type of person who acts like that. You're not worthy enough to be a child of God. You're not worthy enough to even be in God's presence. That's what the condemnation is making you feel. And that's why it's so hard for you to resist it. But if you change your perspective, and if you think about how proud God is of you, that you felt that, and you wanted to do that, and you made a decision and you turned to him. You made a decision and you told the devil no. And you reward yourself. You acknowledge it. You make yourself feel good about that. It's going to be so much easier for you to resist temptation in the future. You also got to understand that even Jesus, when he was on this earth, he was tempted. The devil literally tried to tempt Jesus himself. And God actually led Jesus into the wilderness so that he could be tempted. Stop thinking that temptation is wrong. Stop thinking that you are a horrible person for even having that thought. Stop thinking that you are a horrible person for even feeling that. Temptation is normal. The problem is just when you give into it. And as long as you are not giving into temptation, as long as you are resisting it, as long as you are conquering it, as long as you are saying no to it, you are on the right path. If you really want to overcome temptation, you have to make a decision and choose God daily. See, when we were talking in the beginning of this episode, and I was telling you how we come across all these Christian people where they don't practice what they preach, and everybody calls them hypocrites because it's like you talk about God, but you ain't living for God. Like, we know what you do behind closed doors. We know what you do when you go home from church. Like, we know you. The reason why that happens is because a lot of people do not understand that living for God is choosing Him daily. People think choosing God only happens when you get saved, when you decide to give your life to Christ. And now I got my get out of hell free card, and now I can try, but God knows my heart. And if I give into temptation, He forgives me. No, I'm not saying that He doesn't forgive you, but that's not the right mentality to have. You do not only have to choose God when you give your life to Him. You have to wake up and choose God every single day. You have to make a decision and say, God, I am going to follow you today. God, I am going to do the right thing today. God, I am going to live righteous today. It's a daily sacrifice. Just think of an addict. If you talk to anybody who struggles with addiction, they will tell you that they feel tempted to go back to that thing that they have been battling every single day. But they wake up in the morning, they go throughout the day, and they choose to do right. They choose not to give into that temptation. They choose to say no. I will be so honest with you. I feel tempted to do bad things every single day. Especially because I am not in a good environment right now. I still have people in my life that I've known for years, and I'm progressing forward and they're not progressing forward. And I see the way that they live. I see the things that they do. And the devil tempts me all the time, literally on a weekly basis. And he says, you should go and do that. Them your friends. Why don't you go do what they doing? And I'm not going to speak on what they're doing, but they ain't doing nothing good. I'm just tell you that. And I literally have to make the decision daily. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm choosing God today. I'm not going to live how my friends are living. I'm not going to live how my family is living. I'm not even going to hang out with them because I know that if I hang out with them, I'm going to feel even more tempted to do that. I'm choosing God today. It's a daily decision. It's not just when you get saved. It's not just when you decide to make Jesus the Lord and Savior of your life. It's daily. You have to wake up daily and say, I am choosing God. You will never get to a place where you arrive. You will never get to a place where you never feel tempted to do anything bad. Never. You're just perfect. That's unrealistic. Living for God is a daily decision. And while we're talking about it, I just want to mention this too. You don't want to be the person who's doing the tempting. You don't want to be the person who's influencing people to live unrighteous, to live ungodly, to do worldly things, to do wrong things. You don't want to be the person who is tempting other people to do things that do not honor God. And I say this because I know when you hear that, you're going to be like, of course not. But sometimes the devil might use us to affect another person, and we don't even realize that we're being used. We don't even realize that what we said had a long-term effect on somebody's life. We don't even realize that that opinion we had affected how somebody lives unrighteously. We do not want to be the person who is tempting people to do wrong, who is tempting people to live a life that is not honoring God. And if you're wondering why, I want you to go to Luke chapter 17, verse 1 through 2. It says, "One day Jesus said to his disciples, 'There will always be temptations to sin, but what sorrow awaits the person who does the tempting? It would be better to be thrown into the sea with a millstone hung around your neck to be the cause of one of these little ones to fall into sin.'" Jesus is telling you, you will always feel tempted to sin, but you do not want to be the one who is doing the tempting. You do not want to be the one who is negatively influencing people. And so we have to really self-reflect. We have to think of the opinions that we have. We have to think of the things that we tell people. I'm going to give you a prime example because I talked about it earlier in the episode. When Christian people say, "God knows my heart." Yes, I live unrighteous. Yes, I make no effort to change. No effort. Every time somebody make me mad, I cuss them out and I don't even try not to. I make no effort to try to grow. But God knows my heart. When you say that to somebody else, you're influencing them to believe that that is okay. You do not want to be the one who is tempting people to sin. You do not want to be the one who is tempting people to live unrighteous. And so you have to check yourself and you have to say, how am I influencing people? Have you ever listened to a podcast and thought about creating your own show? Maybe you feel like you've got a message to share with the world, but the idea of starting a podcast seems daunting. You've probably heard that podcasting is difficult and that it requires thousands of dollars worth of equipment to get started. But what if I told you that all of that was false? What if I told you that you can start your very own podcast today and share your message with the world without breaking the bank? In my new training program, I give you all the tools that you need to create and launch your very own podcast for free. In this program, you will learn how to plan, release, market, and grow your podcast from start to finish. There's no need to worry about expensive equipment or technical expertise because I am going to be guiding you every single step of the way. And the best part is that my training program is held on Skillshare, which is the leading online learning community. And if you don't have a Skillshare account, don't worry. When you sign up for Skillshare using my link, you will get the first month completely for free. All you have to do is click the link in the description of this episode to create your account and get started in the class today. Don't let fear hold you back from sharing your message with the world. Take the initiative now and join my training program on Skillshare to get started on your podcast journey. Now let's get back to the show. Even though temptation is normal, even though temptation is something that you're always going to feel and experience, does not mean that you have to give into it. And so if you want to get to a place where you are resisting temptation, where you are conquering temptation, then you have to get to a place where you genuinely love God. See, I'm going to be honest. I talk about this all the time in previous episodes. I told you that sins feel good. The reason why sins feel good is because God wants you to genuinely choose him. Now, if it was up to me, I would just openly sin. I would give into the temptation and I would sin because it makes me feel good. But the reason why I decide to choose God daily is because I actually love and honor God. I understand that my decisions hurt him. I understand that my decisions disappoint him. And it makes me feel some type of way to know that I'm not honoring him. It makes me feel some type of way to know that I'm disappointing him. It makes me feel some type of way to know that I'm not living up to the expectation that he wants me to live up to. I'm not resisting temptation for me. I'm resisting temptation because that's how much I love God. And if you are just trying to do it for you, you are always going to fail. You have to get to a place where it's bigger than you. It's more than you. It's because you genuinely love God. It's because you genuinely honor God's opinion. It's because you genuinely honor the way that God views you. You have to work on your relationship with God. There's a reason why the more you grow closer to God, the more you don't want to live that type of life anymore. The more you don't want to do those things that you used to do anymore, because you are actually getting to a place where you understand that is bigger than you, that you actually care about God. He's not just a genie in the sky who grants your every wish. He is your Father. You love him. You honor him. You respect him. Just think of your parents. Would you really want your parents to know everything that you do? No, because you knew that if they saw some things that you do or that you used to do in your past, they would be highly disappointed. But you love your parents and you don't want them to see that side of you. It's the same thing with God. You love him so much, you don't want him to see that. You don't even want to act like that anymore because you know that you have this deep level of love and respect for him. And so you have to get to a place where you genuinely love God. Now, when you actually get into tempting situations, run. Do not stay in a situation that is tempting, and do not put yourself in tempting situations. I told you a situation with my friends where I said I have a lot of friends and they still live lives that they used to live in the past that I don't really live anymore. And so I don't really hang out with them because if I hang out with them, that is me putting myself in a situation where I know I am going to be tempted to do ungodly things. I want to be 100% real with you. One of the things that I struggled with the most was fornication. And so I got to a point a couple years ago where I decided I wanted to be celibate. And I really this was when I really started growing my relationship with God. And I was like, I really want to honor God. I don't want to do that anymore. And I noticed that I kept failing at it. And the reason why I kept failing at it, when I really sat back and I reflected and I thought about it, it was because I was drinking. When I drank alcohol, I felt tempted to do fornication. And so I do not drink alcohol anymore. Because I know by me drinking alcohol, that is putting me in a situation to be tempted to do something that does not honor God. I want to share this story with you because I want to give you real life scenarios. I want to give you things that you can actually relate to. There are things that you do in your life and you may be used to doing them, but you have to stop because when you do those things, you are putting yourself in situations to be tempted. That is the reason why you cannot overcome temptation. That is the reason why you cannot resist it, because when you're drunk, you're vulnerable. Now you're feeling all types of things that you wouldn't have felt if you were sober. You do not want to put yourself in tempting situations. And when you feel yourself in a tempting situation, you have to run. You have to get out of it. Don't stay there, because the longer you stay there, the more likely you're going to give into it. And if you need help with this, I highly recommend that you get an accountability partner to help you with this. You want somebody who ain't going to be judgmental. Because I'm going to be honest, if you're a Christian and you go to some Christian people and you're like, hey, I'm really struggling with fornication, I don't really know how to stop, they're going to judge you. You need some people where you can tell them 100% what you're struggling with, and they will not judge, but they will hold you accountable. They will make sure that you're not doing anything to give into those types of thoughts, to give into those types of feelings. They are going to hold you accountable and help you overcome and resist the temptation to do it. And even with you doing all of these things, I am not going to lie to you and say that you will never feel temptation again. So if temptation still comes and if temptation still arises, even with you doing these things, get in God's presence. It is so easy to resist temptation when you are in the presence of God. Because now you're not doing it alone. Now you have God by your side, and God is going to help you overcome it. And so my challenge for you this week is I want you to think of one thing that's been tempting and influencing you to do wrong, and I want you to remove it. And so that is all that I have for you today. I want to thank you for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed what you heard, I want you to leave a review and let me and other people know how you like the show. Also, make sure that you join my free Facebook group where we're diving a lot deeper into these topics this week to help you overcome and resist temptation. And also, make sure that you follow me on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook at Prospering with Christ. But that is all that I have for you today, and I will see you next week.